one thing that got me to the fact that I bought the HG back in the day was that it was a Monaro. But at the time, it didn't really resonate with me as that it was a Monaro. It's more that it was a two-door with V8 and 4-speed. It's only after and down as the years went past that the passion grew and grew for the brand, for the car, for the Monaro. And that's what happens. A lot of people, they buy with passion without understanding what goes into rebuilding a car. And so you even get people buying, rusted out KTG Monaros, spending $50,000 to buy an absolute basket case, to then have to spend another $100,000 on top of that to restore it, because absolutely everything's got to be rebuilt. The bodywork alone can cost you $40,000, $50,000. It's a lot of money. When I rebuilt my HG, all up, I spent in total $30,000 from start to finish. That's panel beating, painting, all the mechanicals rebuilt, all the interior done. The car is now 100% original.
Can you tell us why you like cars?
I was always surrounded by cars and farm machinery, and was even working on something mechanical, just sort of sparked that interest. And so I just love tinkering with anything mechanical.
And what is it about cars that makes special? Like,
you see a lot of people, they look at a car and they look at it as just a mode of transport to get from point A to point B. I look at it as, yes, it's a mode of transport, but it's also the enjoyment of getting from point A to point B in a way that you want to, but also the sound, the feel. For me, there's nothing more invigorating than the sound of a throaty V8. Just that enjoyment of driving around in a car that looks good, feels good, but also that you have so many options with cars. You can customize it, you can personalize the vehicle to how you want it to look. And there's so many different paths to go down.
So Silvio, how many cars do you currently have?
A HS GTS Monaro. I've got a HX GTS Monaro, 81 Daimler Sovereign, which now runs a Holden V8 and 4-speed auto, a 99 VT Calais V6, a 99 Statesman V6 supercharged, 2017 VF SSV Redline, 2013 Renault Megane GT220, 2017 Mazda 6 Akira, a HXU, a 64 Hillman Minx, and I've got a HG wagon.
Monaro. What does the word Monaro mean to you?
It's funny because my very first car was the HG Monaro. So I'm looking for a car and I knew what I wanted. I wanted a V8 and I wanted a manual. And I was looking at the time for HQs. I thought I'll get a HQ sedan with a V8. And then I saw advertised the HG. What I liked, it had 253, 4-speed, and it had GDS. I basically went to have a look at it and bought it. I paid $1,800 for it.
So now you've got a collection of Monaros and a collection of Holden. Where did the love affair with Monaro, how did it grow?
The Monaro came off the road in 1987. I started pulling it apart with the intention of rebuilding it. And that's when I really started getting enthusiastic about it. So in between getting that car back on the road, I had a HG Kingswood that I modified and did up. It was a Kingswood with a 186S motor, Aussie 4-speed, mag wheels, I'd lowered. Then I had a HQ Kingswood wagon. I put the V8 in it with aircon and power steering, and that was a great car. Had it for many, many years. Then I had a HQ LS Monaro. It was a 1973 model, low kilometres, only had 60,000 Ks on it, with 6-cylinder, factory T-bar auto, which most of them were column shift, factory delete vinyl roof, in a champagne paint with chocolate brown interior. Really, really nice car.
Silvio, you've seen Holden leave the market. What has the Holden brand meant to you?
It instills a little bit of pride that it's a locally built car. When you consider, you look at the engineering of these cars going back in the 60s and 70s. I look at my HG, and that is a car that was built for Australia. You can drive that thing right around this country and it will get you there. I can actually say that it does that because in 2012, I drove my HG across the Nullarbor to Perth and it literally did not skip a beat. While there were cars on the side of the road broken down, I was cruising past in my HG without a care in the world. Some days were like nearly 40-degree days.
And why did you drive across the Nullarbor?
I went to the Monaro Nationals in Busselton. So we made a trip out of it. Took us a week to get there. I went with a friend of mine. He drove his HK Monaro. We would leave as the sun rose and not too early because we didn't want the roadkill. And as it turned out, it was the best thing we ever did, because during the night, the amount of trucks that would run over wombats, emus, kangaroos, the road was littered. And I just finished rebuilding the car 3 weeks before. It had only probably had 500 Ks on it, and we filled it up and drove.
So you're very proud to do a very Australian thing in an Australian car that you had rebuilt yourself. So the Australian DNA, but you've got your DNA over. How did you feel when Holden pulled out of Australia?
To be honest, I was a bit angry, because obviously decisions weren't made here. They were made in a GM head office. They took away our car, our brand, our Holden brand. At that time, Holden was building one of the best cars they'd ever built. The VF is one of the best Holdens ever produced. It is an amazing car. And you can see where they really put the effort into that car. It drives fantastic. It handles brilliantly. It's got killer power. Like, it is just an absolute rocket. The car goes faster than you can hold on to it. The only way to get the full potential out of that car, you've got to put a racing harness in it, because it's that quick and handles that well.
So what did the brand mean to you? So it was Australian. Now, you've bought a number of new Holden. You started with used Monaros, and now you mentioned the later versions there, the Calais, Statesman, and the Redline.
The current Redline I've got is the second Redline that I bought new. 2011, I bought first brand new Commodore, and then I started turning them over. The current Redline that I've got, you can laugh, I went into the dealership to buy a set of floor mats for my Series 1 Redline. It was a 6-litre Redline, and walked out with the brand new Series 2 Redline. The problem I have with the Holden brand being axed in Australia is that the Commodore is a very unique car. In my opinion, it's left a gap in the market, because it is a large passenger vehicle, V8, rear-wheel drive, that is quite robust and strong. There's not many cars that fill that criteria at a decent price range. I'm not really a fan of buying American-built cars, because, in my opinion, they're quite poorly built. The VF Commodores that were being built here were 10 times better built than anything that was coming out of GM or Ford or Chrysler from the US. Whereas instead now, could you imagine, with the shortage of cars we have at the moment, had we been manufacturing, they would have been selling more Holdens than they could have made. They would have been working around the shift.
When the GFC was around, we actually had 3 car manufacturing plants operating, Toyota, Ford and Holden. When we came out of the GFC, the local factories just ramped up and we had very short lead times, and we filled the void in the market very quickly.
Correct.
Whereas we're not seeing that this time, because the lead times are so long and all our overseas factories have shut. And now there's a silicon chip / semiconductor shortage. The supply lines and the catch-up is taking that much longer. It's 18 months to a year. If the local manufacturers were still around, we'd have a lot of fresh, locally made vehicles.
Yep.
And some really good local suppliers contributing to the economy. And
now that there's no Holdens, what will I buy? What will be my next vehicle? What I want, I can't get anymore. What I want is a VF Redline. They're not making them anymore. I won't go to an American-built product because their quality is not there, and I think it's overpriced for what they are. I now have to start looking at different brands, and I've got to go through that whole rigmarole of trying to work out what do I really want as a replacement vehicle when the time comes. I've already made a decision that I will be keeping my Redline, and I'm also a true believer that cars are meant to be driven. I've had so many people say to me, oh, don't drive your Redline, put it in the shed, don't drive it. And to me, it's like, well, having a great car and not driving it, how many people have gone to the grave with beautiful cars that they haven't enjoyed? I drive my cars. I take my HG out all the time. It didn't matter if it was raining, if it was sunshine. I didn't care. I just drove it. They got wipers for a reason. They got headlights for a reason. You can drive them at night. In saying that too, the HG is a bit like driving a tractor. Doesn't handle that good, doesn't stop that well. You've really got to hold on to it. If you get a little bit loose in the wet, you know about it in a HG Monaro, that's for sure.
Well, thanks, Silvio, for sharing your story. It's a fascinating one, and it's one that it's great to actually get down and granular as to the origins of what makes a car enthusiast, the opportunity to accessorize and customize and have this thing meet your personality. Because you talk about cars being transport, it's not just transport. It's something where you needed to enjoying the sound and the feel. Then you talked about looking good and feeling good in the car. And this is where the opportunity to customize came into play. But then when you looked at how many cars you've got, like currently you've got 10 cars, You've had a wide number of cars through your ownership cycle. But when we look at Monaro then means something super special to you because it's actually a couple of things. You said you loved Holden because Holden was an Australian brand. It's the pride of a locally built car, engineered and built for Australia, and pride that you had in having what was their best ever and flagship car when you look at the Holden portfolio was the Monaro. And the Monaro with the high watermark really was the HT, G and K because they're the ones that really made the statement and made Monaro what it was and really put Holden on the map from a muscle car perspective. But when you think of when Holden left, you were shocked. Then you said you were angry because they took something away from you. They took, the words you used were, they took away our car and our brand. Fair journey there, and we really appreciate you sharing your story